So I'd like to tell you a little story, actually three little stories, about the power of pheromones. In case you don't know what pheromones are, they are the natural scent that we emit, especially when women are in heat. Actually, a woman can only get pregnant 24 hours within a 28-day cycle. There's 24-hour window where she can get pregnant, and that is when her pheromones are peaking. So pheromones are the natural scent of desire. And when a woman is releasing her pheromones, and she doesn't do it consciously, it just happens every month, she is very sexually attractive to others. So you can buy a pheromonal perfume. I like Pure Instinct. I sell Pure Instinct. It is the best of all of them, but there are many others that are much more expensive. But the bottom line is they all have pheromones in them. And what a pheromone cologne does is it increases your natural scent, even if you're not ovulating, which is when your pheromonal scent peaks. By putting this on, it makes it smell as if you are in heat. So again, you are sexually attractive to the opposite sex, even though you're not at that level of your cycle. And so a lot of people think, well, what's that about? Well, it's because that's the only time a person can get pregnant. So males are drawn to the female when she's ovulating. And that's how all of us are here, because they picked the right day or they came close and their sperm lived. So anyway, there are three stories in particular that really prove my point about how powerful pheromones are. The first one is there's this woman who worked she was a hostess of mine many years ago. And she had purchased the pheromone cologne when she was a guest at one of my parties. And then she had a party for herself after she had received her products. So when I got to the pheromones and I was talking about them, she said, that stuff is really dangerous. And I was like, what do you mean it's dangerous? And she says, well, I wore it to the Firehouse. We do volunteer work there. And I just thought, well, I'll put it on. I said, well, how much did you put on? And she said, well, I just took the wand and I just kept putting it on. And I like the way it smells, so I put on a lot. I said, well, that was not good. That was a bad thing to do. And she said, well, I said, what happened? And she said, well, everybody was very friendly towards me. I'm the only woman there. And everybody was just sort of over the top, kind of wanting to be near me and talk to me. And she goes, nobody was inappropriate. She goes, but I knew that stuff was working. Those guys were just kind of coming around. If they weren't gentlemen, I would have been in trouble. I was like, well, I'm glad that nothing happened. And I'm glad that it was that, I proved my point. I said, but the most important thing you have to remember about this pheromone oil, this Pure Instinct pheromone oil, is that it's very powerful. And that's why it is administered with a wand. There's a wand that comes out of the bottle, and you just take that little bit and rub it on, then you wipe off the wand and put it back in the bottle. But if you keep dipping in, or even put it on with your finger, you put too much on. And then it feels like you're not, or it smells like you're not only in heat, but you haven't had sex in a long time. So you really want to be careful about that. The second incidence of using the pheromone perfume and using too much, there is a point where it's too much. There was the young lady who worked at we'll say a large telemarketing company. And she was working the late shift. So they were working, I think, from 4 to 12. Yeah, 4 to 12. And everybody was in their own cubicle. And she had worn this pheromone perfume, the Pure Instinct. And like the other woman, she really liked the way it smelled. So she just put it on with complete abandon, kept on going in, taking the wand, rubbing it on, taking the wand, rubbing it on. What the hell? So she gets to work, and it was a little stifling. It was uncomfortable in there. So they had to turn on a fan. She turned on a fan in her cubicle. And her cubicle was downwind, or he was downwind. Her friend was downwind of the fan blowing on her. Okay. So here is this woman in her cubicle, and the fan is blowing on her, and the air is coming out of the cubicle and going down the room a little bit, and it's wafting into the office of this young man who was a friend of hers. And she's talking to him and he's talking to her, but they're in their separate cubicles. He can't see her. He's not talking to her face. He's just talking to her voice. He's him in his cubicle and her in hers. And then all of a sudden he says to her, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And she goes, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "I don't understand." And she goes, "What do you mean?" And he jumps out from behind the cubicle, and he's got his pants on, but there's a bulging erection there, an obvious erection, because the pheromone scent appealed and got to his feral brain, and it triggered something inside of him that triggered an erection in his youthful 28-year-old body. So, pheromones work on a very feral level, a very subconscious level. And he's standing there and he's trying to push it down. He doesn't understand. She's like, "Oh my God." So then she all of a sudden realized it was the pheromone perfume. So she said, "Oh, excuse me." She ran off to the bathroom to wash it off so that this would, subside. And it did subside, because they weren't like that for each other. They were, co-workers, and she found him attractive in that. But it was, she was a married woman. He was a married man. They were not lovers. They were just friendly co-workers. Okay. And they were talking to each other, and her scent hit his nostrils, and that was it. The third example of how intense this pheromones are and how intense they can be was this one particular woman up in northern Jersey. And I remember I went to do a pleasure party, and she was there. And when I showed the product, she goes, "Oh, you got to watch out for that. That stuff's dangerous." And I was like, "Really? Do tell." So she said, just like those other women, she used too much. Okay. And she had to go to work. And so she goes down to her car, and her car will not start. So she's, "Oh my God, it's snowy outside." Well, it's not snowing now, but the snow is up to here. And so she has to dig out, and then she has to slide her way down to her job, and her car won't start. So she calls a family friend to come down to her car and to help her get out of this mess, and to, so she can go to work. So she has put this cologne on, this pheromone cologne on. And when he shows up, he stands at the front door, and he goes, "I'm here to help." And she walks past him, she's in a hurry, and she walks past him, and she is reeking of this pheromone perfume. I mean, it smells really, really good, but this stuff is very powerful, because it really works on a subconscious level. So he follows her out. He goes like this. When she walks by, he goes like that. And he couldn't believe how his face just followed her body as it went past, because we are creatures that do smell. That's very important to us, to smell things. Anyway, so he goes to her car, and he does whatever he does under the hood, and he's in the seat next to her, and he starts the car up, and she gets in the car next, and she's driving, and he says, we have to take this car to my gas station because I have to change a filter or whatever he had to do. So she was like, okay, but I'm in a really big rush. And he says, well, your car's not going to start again if you don't change this thing, if you don't fix this thing. So she goes, okay. So they start driving there, and she looks over, and he's busy just smelling her. He's not doing anything to her, but he's actually taken his penis out of his pants, and he's stroking himself as she's driving. He's talking to her, and she's driving, and she looks over, and he has just lost it. Now I don't know if he actually had an orgasm, or I think she just pulled over and just kicked him out of the car, because she was totally freaked out by the fact that this guy got so consumed by the scent that he just took it out and started taking care of himself. Do not underestimate the power of pheromones. Pheromones occur naturally for women for a 24-hour period every month. Even after a woman goes through menopause, she still has her pheromone scent, and her cycle is still the same. Even though there are no eggs, she still goes through this scent, and she still peaks once a month. But that can all be aided with the help of a phenomenal pheromone cologne. And as I mentioned earlier, Pure Instinct is the one that I really like, and it's the one that works. But remember, proceed with caution. So this is not the kind of stuff you should wear to work. I mean, unless you're looking for a raise, and I mean in more ways than one, because that's what you're going to get. And it's a responsibility to be a sensual woman. You have to know how to handle yourself, because you can bring all kinds of stuff to bear just by the way that you're leaving, what kind of breadcrumbs you're leaving behind for the suitors to chase you. And pheromones are a strong invitation that you're interested in being friendly. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. It was a lot of fun for me to remember those stories and tell them to you. They're all true. Please visit my website, www.sensualitysexualitypleasureadvice.com. There's hyphens between each one of them. And check out my book on my website, on YouTube. It's called Loving Sex, Every Woman's Guide to Sensual Sexuality. I am a champion for humanity and for pleasure, for your pleasure, because if we allow it, we are going to turn into automatons. We're not going to have any kind of natural attractants between us as far as scent or taste or anything, because we're going to have killed it off with chemicals and medicines and procedures. The more procedures you have, the less natural you are, and the less you have to feel. And that's the best part about being a human, is the five senses and being able to appreciate them. So the sense of scent is very powerful, very provocative, very sexual, very interesting, very inviting. And if you're going to use it for good and not evil. And remember, it most definitely is very powerful. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.